Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the Hummingbird Arcana Podcast. I am Jo Hummingbird. I am an evolutionary astrologer and an Usui Reiki master, and I'm here to help you deep dive into the worlds of Usui Reiki, astrology, and so much more. And today I am here to talk about the upcoming Gemini Full Moon that we have happening on Thursday, December 4th. This is going to be a pretty calm full moon in comparison to the previous Scorpio new moon that we had, and before that, when we had the Taurus full moon. There was a lot going on during that full moon for me personally. And then, of course, during the Scorpio new moon, I had so much come up. I have a pretty powerful relationship to Mars and Pluto and Scorpio energy in my chart, so of course it kind of rocked my world a bit, but that's a different conversation for a different day. We're here to talk about the Gemini full moon, peeps. So this one's going to be a pretty powerful one for me personally. It's going to be calmer for a lot of other people out there in the world just because of the activity we have going on in the sky. But for me personally, I am a Gemini moon. I have Saturn conjunct my moon. The mutual reciprocity between Saturn and my moon go into Capricorn with Mercury in Capricorn as the ruler of Gemini and my sun sign in Capricorn, and the relationship between the sun and the moon. My rising's also Capricorn, so Mercury's conjunct my rising. Like, there's a lot going on with my relationship to Gemini, Mercury, and that energy altogether. So I thought I'd go ahead and share my thoughts with you here today. But before we get started and jump into the deep end with that, if you could take some time and just like the videos, subscribe to the channel, turn on the post notification bell if you're watching on YouTube. But if you're watching or listening on a podcast streaming platform, then I would highly invite you to leave a review and let me know what part of this episode resonated with you the most, or if there's another episode I've put out that resonates with you and you enjoyed it a lot, or an idea for one that you would like me to put out in the future. So let's go ahead and jump into this episode. But before we get into today's episode, I wanted to let you know that Tarot and Oracle card readings are officially back as an offering on my website, and bookings are open if you're interested in seeing what the cards have in store for you. I've personally had the pleasure of reading Tarot and Oracle cards for over 8 years now, and I've done readings for hundreds of people, and I love checking in with Spirit this way, so I'm super excited to have this offering back in action. So head over to the link in the description box or the show notes for more information on booking your reading today. But let's get back into this episode of Hummingbird Arcana. So coming up on Thursday, December 4th, we do have the full moon happening at exactly 5:14 p.m. Central Standard Time at 13 degrees of Gemini, and at 13 degrees of Sagittarius is where the moon will be and the sun will be. So 5:14 p.m. Central Standard Time, of course, is going to be a different time zone for everybody depending on where you are in the world, and it's going to be a different time of day, but it's all going to happen, from a cosmic standpoint at the same time. And there's a lot of activity going on between this nodal axis of the sun and the moon in Gemini and Sagittarius, as well as the nodal lunar axis going on between the north and the south node in Virgo and Pisces. So this full moon perfectly lights up the crossover between all four mutable signs. So you're probably going to be more impacted by this full moon if you have heavy Gemini placements or Sag placements, but you can be affected if you do have Virgo or Pisces, because those are also mutable energies, and they have the north node and the south node there right now, which is the place in which we're all evolving away from collectively and the point that we're evolving to. So this does have an influence when it comes to the mutable energies, because the mutable energies are all about change and transformation and adaptation and allowing for life to inspire you rather than for you to inspire life. A lot of the energies that have to do with like cardinal, sometimes more the fixed signs do as well, but a lot more of the cardinal energy that's going to be Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. Those are more so to do with things being the other way around when it comes to having an impact on life itself or the world around you, or an influence rather than that influencing you. But this energy, the mutable energy, the Gemini, Virgo, Sagittarius, and Pisces energies, those are all in different ways of their own expression and talking about how to integrate change and how to become comfortable with it, how to make sense of it, and how to reconnect with your spirit while going through that change. It starts with Gemini as the learner and the student, gathering as much information as possible and blowing away with the wind. And then we go into Virgo, which grounds that information down into a routine and in hard work that we can actually create a structure to not only benefit ourselves, but other people. And then from that structure is birthed the Sagittarius energy, which is teaching other people how to do the same. It is creating something that is not just facts on a piece of paper like Gemini. It's here's all of my lived experiences with this too, and hopefully you can learn something from it. And then it goes into Pisces, where it's like, okay, now that we've gone through this whole journey together, let's reconnect right back to the point as to why we're here, which is connecting with spirit in the first place. 6:06 on my recording time. Love that. So that's just the little preemptiveness of what we have going on in this full moon. So Saturn and Neptune will already be in Pisces, where the North Node is, which we've had going on for quite some time as collective. So you probably heard every other astrologer talking about, oh my God, Saturn and Neptune, retrograde, and blah, 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 blah. It is going on, and it's going to be happening up and through until next year in 2026. So we're not even going to get into the whole Saturn and Neptune and when that's over. We'll talk about that in another video another time. But those two planets are going to be impacting the Piscean energy. Of course, Neptune being the modern ruler of Pisces, that does have a pretty heavy-hitting effect. This is a time where collectively we're all just kind of following along and doing what we can, and the dreams trying to come into life, and we're all becoming a little more spiritual. We're all becoming more open to the divine somehow, some way. And then Saturn's influence comes into play, and we have structure. We have grounding. We have lots of even discipline, but more so making the mystical mundane. We are trying to bridge the realm between the two. So that also brings into the conversation if you have Capricorn or Aquarius placements, because that is the traditional ruler of Aquarius and it is the all-time ruler of Capricorn. So if you have like heavy Saturn placement, Saturn in the first house, Saturn in the 10th or 11th, or even, let's say in your third house, because it's a Mercury ruled full moon that we have coming up. But if you have any of that energy in your chart, then you will probably be affected by this, not as much as say the Geminis and the Sagittariuses, but probably like third place you would be. Especially for people who have Capricorn and Gemini in their chart like I do. But I'm going to be pretty hard hit by this full moon as a Gemini moon myself. But those are going to be pretty up there. I'm just going to be real. But then we have Mars and Venus both in Sagittarius at the same time that the Sun will be there, opposing the Moon in Gemini. So this is going to be a fun one. It's definitely going to, there's divine masculine and feminine principles within this full moon, but not in the sense that it's like, all the harmonics between the divine feminine and the masculine are converging and we are having unity consciousness on Earth, love and light. That's not what's fucking happening. Be real. Mars and Venus and the Sun in Sagittarius, it's like, okay, I want my freedom and I want it now. I want the truth and I want it now. I want the answers and I want it now, and I'll do whatever the fuck I want to get there. Period. Point blank, no questions asked. And when it comes to that opposing the Moon in Gemini, that's really asking us to get curious on why we're so defensive. Obviously, there's a lot of things going on in the collective, so do not be like, well, it's obvious why we're all so upset. There's war and genocide and everything happening. Yes, there is, and that's fucked up and it's horrible, and that is why we are all upset. And in the same breath, we all still do have individual lives with individual narratives happening and unfolding in them, with each having different perceptions of reality. So what is happening for you? This is where Gemini goes beyond Sagittarius's party hardy in the 9th house, large groups of people, the world, and it goes back down into Gemini, community, close-knit, internal stimulus, mindset. What is happening internally that is having you act in such a vigilant way towards that which you know to be true for yourself and sometimes others? And this is where the objective facts of Gemini are going to also, outweigh, even though planetarily it's not being outweighed, it's like emotionally being outweighed. This is where it's outweighing the beliefs and the truths about Sagittarius's energy. It's like, okay, well, here's all this energy that I have built up and I'm passionate about. And here's Gemini being like, what's the fact about this? What's actually true? What can I confirm within not just my nervous system and the stimulus I experience, but within that of other people around me in my community too? Not just in the world like Sagittarius, or on a plane, or on a boat, or on social media, or in my fantasies, but what can actually be confirmed. And with the squaring to the nodal axis, the perfect square that this makes in the sky, this also, not just within the context of what is belief versus what is fact, this will bring to the forefront in that context the beliefs or the thoughts or the facts or the ways of existing in the world or the ways of existing in a community that are holding you back from pursuing your destiny, that are holding you back from being the version of yourself that you knew you came here to be and the version of yourself that the world is here to receive you as. And at the same time that I say this, I don't want this to be like a whole episode of like, okay, well, you have to get real harsh on reality with yourself and never believe in the truths that you hold to your heart or that come from spirit or from a higher perspective. That's not what I'm saying here at all. What I'm saying is that this full moon literally encourages us to remember that all truths are valid, but so is all information from our intrinsic spiritual standpoint. Not that it is the truth with a capital T, but it is a truth with a lowercase t. Not everybody's truth is going to be your truth, and not everybody's truth will resonate with yours. Not everybody is going to have the same perspective. Not everybody's going to have the same feelings, the same experiences, the same anything at all. Some people might share the same experiences as you, which in that case, great. This will be a really powerful time to come in resonance with those people. But for a lot of people right now in the collective energy and the way that the planets are playing out with the nodes, it isn't about me and my community and how we get along. It's what's holding me back from being able to do that. It's what's being able to come through that's actually allowing for the expansion, the expression, the dissolving of limiting beliefs, the removal of limited ways of thinking, the alchemization of everything that we went through with the Scorpio new moon leading up into this point, the realizations, the dark truths, the deep, bloody beating heart that comes out of the depth of Scorpio energy that goes straight into the loving light of awareness that this axis gives us. So with that being said, this is going to be a really big time for self-reflection, not just doing the deep shadow work and purging all the emotions the way that we have with Scorpio energy. This is, okay, now that we're away from a new moon, we're not planting seeds, we're in a full moon, we're being illuminated, we're being reflected back to. So this is a time that will give you clarity to evolve. It will make you the student of life again. It will put you in the student's seat versus the teacher. Not that you won't have experience being a teacher, but you're going to be a student of life again for this full moon. And so the houses that you can look to in your chart to see where this is going to actually happen for you the most effectively is going to be the houses where you have Gemini, Sagittarius, of course, where the moon and the sun will be, and then Virgo and Pisces where the nodes will be, but then also look to Cancer, Leo, and Capricorn, because Cancer is ruled by the moon, Leo is ruled by the sun, and then obviously we have the square happening to Saturn and the nodes and everything. Neptune is over there, but that already rules Pisces, and we talked about Pisces already, so you don't really have to worry about that much, because it's also Jupiter ruled, which rules Sagittarius as well, so Jupiter's already figured out. But the planets where you can look are Mercury, Jupiter, Saturn, Neptune, Venus, Mars, the North Node and the South Node, and the Sun and the Moon, of course. But, I would really emphasize the houses over the planets per se, just because this is going to be where in life you're looking at things versus planets are what and or how. And same as the signs, it's going to be what and or how, but then the houses are going to be where. Personally, I am going to be having this full moon affect my 6th house and my 12th house the most, as well as my 3rd and my 9th, because those are going to be where I have all my mutable energies. Funnily enough, they're mutable houses, or they're cadent houses, but I digress. That is where it is personal for me. It is going to be in routine, it's going to be in spirituality, it's going to be in community, and it's going to be in higher truth and education, and my ability to share that and express that with the world. And that's kind of what I'm doing right now, which is cool. But I would definitely look to the houses where you do have Gemini, Sagittarius, Virgo, or Pisces. Those are going to be the biggest hard heavy hitter places in the chart. But I did see, this is going to be just like a little mini rant here, aside from everything I talked about, but it relates because it's about the Gemini full moon. I did see on my Instagram feed, somebody posted like a carousel slide grouping of pictures about the Gemini full moon coming up. And this person is not an astrologer. at least not from my understanding of their work. I could be totally wrong that they do that in their personal life. I'll be open to admit that, but at the same time, what you're presenting online is all that everybody sees. So that is open for critique from the public. But I digress. This person posted about the Gemini full moon, and they said this is going to be about the nervous system healing. And I was like, girl, no, ma'am. Gemini does not rule the nervous system. It is about how the nervous system receives the stimulus that is Gemini. It's not anything to do at all with the nervous system itself. Like, nervous system is not ruled by Gemini. Let me put that flat out, point blank, on the table, period. No ifs, ands, or buts. Gemini is not about the nervous system. It is about how we interact with the stimulus and how stimulus interacts with our nervous system, but it is not the nervous system itself, period. The analogy that I want to give you on this is kind of like a bowl of fruit. Like, if the bowl is like all of astrology, like the zodiac signs, the houses, everything, cool. Then we have the fruits, which are, the signs and the planets, and, how there's, if you've listened to the Astrology Basics episode, there's like a mutual reciprocity between rulerships of signs, planets, and houses. It's like a sign is a ruler over a planet and a house. A house is a ruler over a planet and a sign is a ruler over a planet and a house. It's the triangulation version of squares and rectangles. It's super complicated from like a beginner standpoint, but once you understand the basics of it and you really integrate that and it becomes like common knowledge to you and everyday life part of you, then it isn't so hard to grasp or comprehend or integrate. But when it comes to the fruits here, let's just say an apple and a banana, these are going to be Gemini and Virgo. Now, we could argue and say that the planet that rules over both Gemini and Virgo rules the nervous system, Mercury. That would be true to an extent because it rules stimulus and mindset and routine in the body in the way that Virgo does, and Virgo is ruled by Mercury. So I would say, if anything, if we're going to assign nervous system to any mercurial planet or any mercurial sign, it is going to be Virgo, because they rule 6th house of routine and health and body and structure and work. So all these things have an impact on our body, and we have to choose with our mind, our intellect, Mercury, how to respond to that. Same thing with Gemini. We have to choose with our mindset how to respond and how to express ourselves, how to communicate, how to form community, period, how to short form travel. That is Gemini energy versus Virgo, again, routine, health. So if you're going to assign nervous system anything to anyone, it's going to be Virgo out of the mercurial signs, which are only 2, but I digress. So going back into the fruits analogy in the bowl to make it make sense here, the reason I say that, and it's like, well, why can't Gemini rule the nervous system? Maybe that's your experience and your perspective, but in the 8.5 years plus that I have been reading astrology charts and studying astrology as a science and as a system, Gemini does not rule the nervous system. And as a Gemini moon, with all the mutual reciprocity between my Saturn and my Mercury conjunct my rising in Capricorn and the sun there, like all of that Saturnian mercurial energy, you could argue it's me being rigid here, but I disagree lovingly, because it's not in Gemini's nature to always pay attention to their nervous system. It's not in Gemini's nature to always respond to their nervous system. Sometimes because Mercury rules Gemini and stimulus all together, sometimes it is so powerful as a Gemini placement, you can override the nervous system. You can override stimulus. You can override with your mind your physical body, which is possible for humans to do. Some way more than others. Some people are more abled than others. Some people are disabled. Some people don't have certain connections between neural pathways. Some people have had accidents. Some people have had paralysis. Fill in the blank with literally anything. Not everybody's experience and perspective is going to be different. So this is my own. This is my experience. This is my wisdom. This is my insight. So take it with a grain of salt for what it is. But regardless, in my experience as a Gemini moon myself, being heavily affected by this full moon, I disagree that this full moon is going to be about the nervous system. I disagree that this is going to be about, making sense in your body about things. This is not Virgo energy. This is not Virgo's time. I mean, yes, the South Node is in Virgo, so it's going to be dealing with that comfort zone of where we've all come from in this phase of evolution, where in the collective consciousness right now, Virgo South Node, this is about, working really hard and perfecting your craft and being super analytical and logical and reasonable and making sure that you have a routine established that actually supports and uplifts you, and then does the same for people around you. It's super hard to balance because Virgo is the nervous system. It's not Gemini, because what does our nervous system do? It constantly balances everything, whether we're consciously recognizing it or not. Our nervous system is responsible for communicating messages of pain, of pleasure, of anger, of sadness, of physical discomfort, of emotional discomfort, of every sensation and emotion that you can possibly fathom or perceive or think of. It is your nervous system's job to relay that information to your brain to then give you a signal on how to respond to it, which is the brain, what? The mind, which is what planet? Mercury. So this is not necessarily that Gemini rules the nervous system. Virgo does. But Gemini rules over the stimulus, the message that is being conveyed to your nervous system. How is your brain telling the rest of your body how to respond? How is your brain telling the rest of your emotional process or your complex to respond to what is happening around you? It is the ability to respond. It is not the reason that we're responding altogether. It is not the reason why we have to respond. It is not the thing that is, being forced upon us. It is the stimulus of the experience as the measurable unit. It is not itself like the catalyst outside of us, even though it can be arguably at certain points. I hope this is making sense. It's like the fruits analogy. Let's say Gemini is an apple and Virgo is a banana. Bananas are great for potassium because then they help regulate your blood pressure, and then they help you absorb other nutrients, and they put a certain metal back into your body that helps you not be as lightheaded or dizzy or what's the other word I can't think of this moment? It's a medical term and it is blanking in my system. I think you get the point, but I'll re-include it if I remember it in the next thought sequence. But then Gemini, the apple, this is very like sweet. This is something that helps your blood sugar levels. This is something that helps you to add nutrition to something that can be sweet and easily digestible without, a horrible flavor. Not that, bananas can't be sweet if you let them sit out for a little bit. That's not the point. There's both a categorization here for these to be fruits, aka signs, aka ruled by a planet, but they both don't do the same thing. But they help your body to respond to the nutrients in which they give and to other nutrients around. So arguably, no, Gemini does not rule the nervous system. No, this full moon is not about nervous system healing. This full moon is about going into your mind and being revealed the ways in which how you're responding to life and how you're responding to reality and how you're responding to your belief systems is hindering your nervous system's ability to respond, period. I hope that makes sense when I put it that way, because as much as this is also a time for us to be removing the limiting beliefs and come to compare the truths versus the facts, like, you can't always do that when your nervous system is involved all the time. Like, yes, you'll have to regulate your nervous system before you can even receive that information or integrate it, let alone. So it's not a time all about nervous system healing. It's not a time about integrating stimulus. It's not about a time of making sense of things always. It is about finding clarity and finding your truth and finding how that intermingles with reality and the facts of harsh reality itself. It is not like super Saturnian in that way, but as a Gemini, Capricorn, Saturn, Mercury, mutual reciprocity being, I understand this energy very, very well. It isn't like a cocky, pseudo-narcissistic, like, look at me, I know better type thing, or pointing fingers. Everybody in the community is wrong and I'm right. Abso-fucking-lutely not. I could be wrong and I'll wake up tomorrow and I'll admit it. It's just a matter of my hard-earned lived experience being so Saturnian mercurial. It's about the relationship between the mind and the body, and harsh reality for me is just my whole existence. So when it comes to this full moon, this isn't just a time where it's great for manifestation or it's great for getting the truth. It's great for coming to terms with reality. It is, but it's more than that. It's how is your passion being so passionate that it's holding you back from seeing the truth about your own passion. It's like having the ultimate mirror up to the truth, because Sagittarius rules truth and Gemini rules facts. Again, it goes back to that very simplistic student-teacher axis, textbook versus the person with the beliefs and understanding of the curriculum. So when you reflect, let's just say, if you've ever been in class for whatever subject in whatever grade of school, and you've been sitting in the class and the teacher is pulling from their personal experience and they're not pulling from the textbook or from the learning material, and it's deviating away from the quality of everybody's learning. That feeling. It's like, okay, here we are on a soapbox again and listening to somebody talk about their own thoughts instead of sharing what's on the textbook like they're supposed to. Do your job, bro. There's a time and a place where it's appropriate, and there's a time and a place where it's wildly inappropriate to do so, especially when it comes to matters of personal opinion versus lived experience, because those are two different things. They can go hand in hand, but somebody projecting their opinions onto you, it can be, and a lot of the times is, different than somebody sharing an experience they've had objectively without a bias. And so we've all been in that situation at some point, whether it's a family member doing that to us and they're just preaching at us, or we're sitting in a classroom and a teacher is derailing the whole curriculum because they want to go off on a rant about whatever they believe in is right versus what we're learning about. Not that the curriculum can't ever be wrong, but this is a moment in which, with the Gemini full moon, the light of the sun in Sag, which is the belief, that life force that's shining out, all this belief and passionate energy with Mars and Venus there, it's shining onto the moon, which is over in the sign of truth and facts, reflecting back to us in the darkness of the unconscious nighttime. So the things that we can't see, the things that are lurking around in the shadows, the things that are like not fully present with us all the time, that are unconscious, that aren't a part of our conscious processing system, our ego, our self-awareness, these parts of us are being lit up by the light of our passion and being reflected back to us, because Gemini is also the sign of the twins. It is ultimately the sign of the mirror by that regard. How weird. On the clock right now in real time, 10:01, which is a palindrome, a mirror number, 1001, on the clock in real time as I say that. Just a confirmation there for you. But I digress. This literally is not a time to sit here and be like, well, this is what I believe, this is what I know, and that's it. That's the truth. That's that. If the more you drag your heels and the more stubborn you are during this full moon, the harder of a time you're going to have, because Gemini as a sign is also very open-minded versus Sag is very like, well, this is how I want to live my life and I don't care what you think. It's very authentic and great, powerful energy. We need it when we need it, but this is not the time. This is the time where the light of that sun, that Sagittarius energy, is being shown onto Gemini, where it highlights its opposite. It highlights the exact opposite of what it is. So we're not supposed to be stuck in this is what I believe and this is what I do and this is how it is energy. We're supposed to be going to open-minded, to curiosity, to exploration, to not just a version of individualism that excludes other people from being a part of you as the individual or experiencing you as the individual. It is becoming an individual that consciously recognizes that they're a part of a group of individuals that create another group of individuals that create a population that create a planet. So this is zooming out, or zooming away, or back down, I should say, zooming down into the mercurial essence, because that is the smallest planet. It's the microscopic. It's looking at every small detail, and it's also, ruled by Virgo. That's a very detail-oriented sign. Then you zoom out to Sagittarius, which is Jupiter ruled, the biggest planet in our solar system. This is one of the most polarizing differences to have to make in astrology. It's like, okay, we're going from this big, larger than life energy of I feel so grandiose and, kind of smoke blown up your ass. No offense, Sagittarius. I have a Sag South node, so don't even come for me. But then you go over to Gemini energy and it's like, well, whatever. I'm not that worried about it. I'm not that attached. Yeah, that's a bummer to know about, but there's other things in the world to be focused on. Like, it's not so self-aggrandizing or amplificatory of their own essence or their own struggle or their own joy. So like, Gemini is excitable and it's communicative, but it's not going to sit there and hold on to that in the way that Sagittarius would and be relentless about letting it go. Mercury is a planet that goes into retrograde the most often in our solar system because of how short its revolution around the sun is, So Jupiter being the first gas giant in our solar system beyond a field of asteroids that separate it from us, like there's almost this nature of having to pull from beyond something that you can comprehend and call into a divine force and trust that what you're receiving in this moment, what you're experiencing in this moment, is actually meant for you, and that it has something for you to learn from, not just to teach other people about, but to learn for yourself and to integrate how you're responding to reality, how you're responding to your fears, how you're responding to every thought that you have. And it might be a super overstimulating moon. It might make your nervous system fry out. In that case, yeah, this full moon's about the nervous system, depending on where you have Gemini and what planets you have there. And in the same breath, it could also not be, depending on what signs you have where, what planets you have in Gemini, and what house Gemini sits in for you. So this full moon isn't an easy one by any means, but it's certainly easier than all the depth and the darkness and the death and rebirth that we had with Scorpio energy, and then all the foundation setting that we had with a Taurus full moon before that. This is a time where it's cooling down a little bit, just enough for you to be able to receive the hard facts at the same time that you're able to honor your truth and look at how they go hand in hand, look at how they can support each other, look at the ways that they're not supporting each other, and integrate ways of being in which allow for them to actually do so, to actually support each other, to actually function in harmony, to balance out the axis of the student and the teacher, to make you the student of life again. So I hope that this episode got you some clarity on the upcoming Gemini full moon on December 4th, Thursday at 5:14 p.m. Central Standard Time. If you are curious as to how this full moon will affect you personally, I would love to look into your chart with you in real time. Sessions start at only $11, by the way, to take a look at how the transits are affecting you. And the transits are what you need in order to understand where the moon is, or any planet in the sky is right now. Even though the moon isn't a planet, it's a luminary. I digress. Don't come from the astronomy community. I'm an astronomy person myself, but besides the point, if you want to take a look at that, that's where the transits come into play. And my Transit Express reading is only $11, where we can take a look at that in 15 minutes and give you a really brief breakdown and really powerful insight into where this is going to be affecting you the most and what you can do to navigate this time in a way that will serve your sovereignty in your highest timeline. So thank you so much for listening to today's episode. All the links will be down below in the description box, as well in the show notes, to connect with me on my socials, or to book a session, or to take my classes, or to listen to other episodes of my podcast if you would like to do that, or to make a donation if you feel called to support me in this work. I would be super, super grateful and appreciative if you did. But if you don't want to do that, you can always just give the video a like or leave a review with a 5-star on the podcast streaming platform that you're listening to, or make a comment on YouTube, like the video and subscribe, turn on the post notification bell so you're notified every time a new episode comes out. But other than that, it is always my pleasure to assist you in awakening you to your cosmic divinity. I am Jo Hummingbird. I will see you in the next episode. Many blessings, and take care, my friends.